Welcome to another episode of Psyche and Cinema. In this episode, we look at the movie The Matrix by the Wachowski brothers, the 1999 release. Possibly one of the richest cinematic offerings from a Jungian perspective in the last 2 decades. The movie touches on many issues, most obviously the issue of our immersion in the virtual world, and I think in that sense it's quite prescient if we look at how much more pronounced that's become at this time. But from a psychoanalytic perspective, it offers a particularly rich mythology to illustrate certain Jungian concepts. And there's 3 concepts specifically that I want to focus on in this episode. The first one, the idea of individuation and the role of the second personality in the individuation process. Secondly, the psychic prison created by our neurotic fantasies that I think The Matrix is a useful metaphor for. And then finally, the equivalence of consciousness to truth, how becoming conscious is just the realization of a truth. So to start with this question of the second personality, the idea from Jung is that the seed of our individuation is held in the second personality, what he refers to as the sort of the unconscious self, the hidden self, or sometimes the self-archetype. And it's this personality that holds the blueprint and the possibility for our individuation process. It transcends the limitations of the ego identity. And this idea is illustrated very early on in The Matrix, in the interrogation of Thomas A. Anderson by Agent Smith, where Smith makes it explicit that Neo has 2 personalities. His personality number 1 of Thomas A. Anderson, computer programmer, and then his second personality, Neo, that of a computer hacker. And as the film goes on to show us, it's the second personality, Neo, that holds the key to his individuation process and ultimately to his liberation, his role as liberator and redeemer. So let's watch this first scene where Smith makes this explicit.
As you can see, we've had our eye on you for some time now, Mr. Anderson. It seems that you've been living 2 lives. In one life, you're Thomas A. Anderson, program writer for a respectable software company. You have a social security number, you pay your taxes, and you help your landlady carry out her garbage. The other life is lived in computers, where you go by the hacker alias Neo and are guilty of virtually every computer crime we have a law for. One of these lives has a future, and one of them does not.
The next scene I want us to look at is where Neo rendezvous with Trinity and the crew of the Nebuchadnezzar at the Allen Street Bridge. And there's a moment after he meets with them where he decides to back out, not to go any further on this journey with them, and he opens the car door to step out, and Trinity leans forward and places her hand on his arm, and she says to him, "You know that road, you know where it leads and where it ends." Now, isn't this just a perfect metaphor for Freud's repetition compulsion, that our neuroses have this character, that they're repetitive. They take us down the same road and they lead us to the same destination. And ultimately, it's a stagnant way of being in the world. There's no evolution, there's no growth. And individuation involves moving beyond this repetition compulsion, beyond this sort of neurotic way of being in the world, making different choices that ultimately allow a more authentic unfolding of the personality. Let's watch the scene.
Get in.
What the hell is this?
It's necessary, Neo. For our protection.
From what?
From you. Take off your shirt.
What?
Stop the car. Listen to me, Copper Top. We don't have time for 20 questions. Right now, there's only one rule. Our way or the highway.
Fine.
Please, Neo. You have to trust me.
Why?
Because you have been down there, Neo. You know that road. You know exactly where it ends. And I know that's not where you want to be.
This journey of discovery that Neo has been on, this quest to find out what the Matrix is, culminates in his meeting with Morpheus, this classic scene where Morpheus offers him an unenviable choice, the choice between the blue pill that will take him back into the Matrix, back into his fantasy world, wherein his world and his identity remain intact, or the red pill that as Morpheus says to him, will show you just how far down the rabbit hole goes. But remember, Morpheus says to him, all I'm promising you is the truth, nothing more. And this, I think, is really a fantastic metaphor for consciousness, that consciousness reveals a truth, and it's a liberating truth. But simultaneously, it liberates by shattering the illusions that we previously held about ourselves. So it requires no small degree of moral fortitude to withstand such a truth or to be open to receiving such a truth. Anyway, this is really, must be one of the most fantastic, iconic scenes in The Matrix. Let's watch.
At last. Welcome, Neo. As you no doubt have guessed, I am Morpheus.
It's an honor to meet you.
No. The honor is mine. Please, come, sit. I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice. Tumbling down the rabbit hole?
You could say that.
I can see it in your eyes. You have the look of a man who accepts what he sees because he is expecting to wake up. Ironically, this is not far from the truth. Do you believe in fate, Neo?
No.
Why not?
Because I don't like the idea that I'm not in control of my life.
I know exactly what you mean. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life, that there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. Do you know what I'm talking about?
The Matrix?
Do you want to know what it is? The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth.
What truth?
That you are a slave, Neo. like everyone else, you were born into bondage. Born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind. Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more. Follow me.
This scene really is a wonderful symbolization of what we are faced with when we choose consciousness over an unconscious way of being in the world. The blue pill is the unconscious choice. It's remaining in one's unconscious fiction, in one's fantasy. And it's definitely the more comfortable choice. It's the way we are used to being in the world, the way we justify our suffering and justify our limitations. The red pill, on the other hand, offers the possibility of new worlds and new identities and a new way of being in the world. But it comes at a very high price. It comes at the price of shattering the illusions of that which we've previously held to be true. Now, many people I've asked this question to in the past, and I've asked many, which pill would you take, tend to be quite glib in saying the red pill. That's obviously the cooler answer, the red pill. Nobody wants to say the blue pill. But I think it's a question really worth reflecting on. Given such a choice, what would you choose?